minimize the screen.
All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. I just want to let you know that we are recording the webinar. So today we have a webinar on the National Endowment for the Humanities Fellowship Program that's part of the Dynamic Language Infrastructure Documenting Endangered Languages Fellowship partnership with NEH and National Science Foundation. I'm very delighted today to be joined by Dr. Suha Kodsi, she, her. Dr. Kodsi has a PhD in comparative literature from the University of Toronto. She specializes in examining cross-cultural encounters, travel accounts, ethnography, and historiography. She's a program officer at the Division of Research and the team lead for the DLI-DEL Individual Fellowships, a program run in collaboration with NSF. Prior to joining the NEH, she was an assistant professor teaching humanities and language courses at the City University of New York, CUNY. Welcome today. I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Colleen, for your help and for your nice introduction. I would like, first of all, hello and good afternoon to all of you. And thank you for taking the time off your busy schedules to attend the meeting today. I would like to thank Tamu for organizing this meeting and giving me the chance to speak to you about the DLI-DEL fellowships. I'm going to share my screen with you. I prepared the PowerPoint. Now, during the PowerPoint, actually, I will not be able to see your questions.
And I will. Would you like me to ask the questions if they come up, or would you like to do them at the end?
If it is, I think if there's something I'm talking about, it will be nice actually to interrupt the mode of reading and going through my notes with questions. I'd be grateful, Colleen, for your help.
I'll keep an eye out for you.
And if my internet connection becomes weak, Colleen kindly has offered to fill in, to talk about the program a little bit. She has more experience actually than myself in running and knowing, building this program. So I'm grateful for this opportunity as well, meeting Colleen and you. So, okay, let's see, okay. So as an introduction, as Colleen mentioned, the Dynamic Language Infrastructure Grants, DLI for short, are run in partnership between NEH and NSF. The long-standing partnership that started in 2005, 16 years ago, grew out of the two agencies' shared concern for the looming extinction of thousands of languages across the globe, and in particular, threatened indigenous languages in the United States. At the NEH, two divisions manage DLI applications. The first one is the Division of Research, which oversees the DLI Fellowships program. And that's the program I'm going to discuss with you today. The second division is Preservation and Access, which manages the DLI senior grants. And I'm going to talk about them towards the end of the talk. It will take me about 35 minutes to cover the main points I would like to discuss with you. So just to let you know. The NSF and NEH meet frequently to discuss ways to improve the DLI program. For example, since 2019, the funding has been in the amount of $5,000 per month for the DLI fellowships, and it can be split into two different periods or separate periods of funding. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on. So basic information or statistics about the program. Since 2006 and until 2020, NEH has funded 98 fellowships in the DLI program. As before, these fellowships are offered for a period of 6 months to 12 months at a monthly stipend rate of $5,000. The geographic distribution of language communities. This map shows you where the language communities of previous fellowship awards are located. It covers all awards between 2006 and until 2020. You can see there are certain clusters in North America, here, South America, some in Africa, and also you have clusters in Indonesia and Papua New Guinea. Overall, the projects are spread across the globe, which is amazing. NEH awarded 36 grants in North America, and the projects examined endangered languages in 16 states. Again, the map here shows where those projects are located. You'll notice some of them are actually located in Canada because the applicants are US citizens who work or live in Canada. I'm going to talk about this aspect, applicants' eligibility, later on. Overview for of the main points I'm going to cover today. I'll talk about the program goals, required and conditional or supplemental material to be submitted with the application, the review criteria, how to prepare the application, and of course, answering your questions. What you really need to know is that the grants, the fellowship applications and the program is an individual program. So the grants are actually submitted by individual scholars, and they don't need to be affiliated with academic institutions or colleges. The projects must focus on documenting, not revitalizing endangered languages. So it's not about teaching endangered languages, rather it is about documenting endangered languages. Grants support archival documentation, article book, dictionary, digital material, publication of grammar books, and similar scholarly resources, as well as translation. The period of performance can vary. The shortest period is 6 months and the longest is 12 months. You can apply for funding for 8 months or 9 months, but the shortest period would be 6 months. The deadline to apply this year is September 15. And I'll talk about the notice of funding opportunity in a minute. So the program goals is to develop and advance scientific and scholarly knowledge concerning endangered human languages. And you might, one of the main questions is what would count as an endangered language? The best way to define what would constitute an endangered language is to refer to the posted 2 sources. The first one is a reference to the article published by John Van Wey in Language and Society in 2016. So you have the link here. In this article, he enumerates several factors that help you assess the endangerment of a language. These may include intergenerational language transmission, the absolute number of speakers, the proportion of speakers within the total population, the community members' attitudes toward their language, and the amount and quality of documentation, existing documentation. The second document is prepared by the UNESCO, and again, you can check it, and both documents will help you assess how much the language you're studying is endangered and how you can actually explain and account for its endangerment in the application. Key program details. As I mentioned earlier, grants are made to individuals, not institutions. The amount is $5,000 per month. That's the amount of funding for a minimum period of 6 months and a maximum period of 12 months. I would like to add here that full-time and continuous tenure is preferred during your fellowship, but you may break your fellowship or your award into 2 parts, one of which must be at least 3 months in duration. So you need to work on your research for 3 months before you take the break. So if you have a 6-month fellowship, for example, and you have to teach a semester in between, you could take 3 months initially at the beginning, then have the break, teach for a semester or for, throughout an academic year, and then take your second 3 months of your fellowship afterwards off to focus on your research. However, during the fellowship period, when you are actually on your fellowship, you must devote 100% of your time to your project and not take on other teaching or other professional obligations. The deadline for the application, as I mentioned earlier this year, is September 15, 2021. Notification of decision is April 30th of next year, 2022. And the earliest starting date is May 1st, 2022. And the latest date to start your research is 1st of September, 2023. These details actually are visible on the webpage for the fellowship. So on the right-hand side, right side, you'll see all those dates mentioned and listed. And on the left side, you'll see actually application material and other documents that will help you prepare your application. I'm going to go over them in a minute. So NEH handles the intake and review process for DLI-DEL fellowships. This means you must apply through the grants.gov portal and not Fastlane or research.gov, as you might have done for other NSF applications and grants. So you have to actually set up an account, establish an account for yourself on grants.gov. The application elements are different from the ones submitted for NSF, but most of the content is the same. Likewise, the review criteria are formulated somewhat differently, but overall they are very similar to the ones you might submit for NSF. I will elaborate on these points in the next slides. So on the left side of the webpage, the most important part here is step 1, as you can see it here, step 1, where you can download the DLI-DEL Notice of Funding Opportunity for Fellowships, what we call NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity. This is actually your best friend and your best resource to prepare your application. The NOFO is what NSF would call solicitation. That is to say, the detailed information and instructions about how to apply for this fellowship. Download the PDF document, read it carefully, and keep it at hand as you assemble your application. If you scroll down here, you'll notice program resources. They include a fact page, frequently asked question page, and a list of all funded DLI projects. Funding restrictions, that you'll see this on page 16 of the NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity. Sometimes actually the DLI-DEL fellowships do not fund certain projects because other divisions or agencies such as NEA, National Endowment for the Arts, can fund them. For example, documentaries, podcasts, and exhibitions are funded through NEH's public program division and not through this grant. Inventories and catalogs of collections are funded through NEH's Preservation and Access Division and not through this program. Research by students enrolled in a degree program, including research for doctoral dissertations and theses, are not funded here. I'll take a minute to go over the applicants' eligibility. So students are not allowed to apply for DLI fellowship grants. US citizens who are not enrolled in degree programs can apply for DLI fellowships, regardless of where they live or work. If you remember on the map, some projects were located in Canada. And that's because the applicants are US citizens working or living in Canada. Now, non-US citizens and residents can also apply for the fellowships, but they must have lived and resided in the US for 3 consecutive years before the application deadline. Regarding degree requirements, a PhD degree is not required. However, you must have completed your professional training before you apply, and it can be at any level. If you don't have a PhD in linguistics or a related discipline, you will have to convince the peer reviewers in your application that you are qualified to undertake the project you propose. Organizations are not eligible to apply on behalf of scholars. As I mentioned earlier, you do not need to be a faculty member or even be affiliated with a university or organization. Returning to the list of restrictions of funding, you'll see that the preparation or revision of educational material, writing for children, guidebooks, and self-help books are not funded through the DLI-DEL fellowships. For creative works, performances of art, you can actually apply for the NEA, National Endowment for the Arts. Required and conditional supplemental application material. On the left column, you'll see that the application is made up of 5 required attachments. The narrative is the most important. This is where you describe your project and make the case for funding it. The narrative must be succinct and well organized. Keep in mind that it is just 3 pages long, so it's very short actually. For the work plan, you should describe your preparation of your project, then include a detailed plan in 3 months increments, each detailing what you will do and where, and if possible, the outcomes. Remember that you must devote 100% of your time to the project during the fellowship. If the entire project cannot be completed in a year, that's okay. But please provide a plan and timeline for completion beyond the fellowship. The bibliography, since it is limited to 1 page, you need to include just the most pertinent works related to your project. Remember that if you've published on this topic yourself before, you can list that under your CV, in your CV, and not mention it in the bibliography. The resume is a 2-page CV that lists current and past positions, your degrees, and with dates and titles of dissertations, any awards, honors, and grants, especially those that are relevant to your project, as well as publication with full citations. Make sure you list publications and activities that are relevant to your proposed project and work. Writing samples are 1 or 2 pages long. Make sure you provide examples that illustrate the methods and results of your linguistic research. For example, a sample dictionary or grammar entry, interlinear glossing, questionnaires, task prototype protocols, records, and any other material that may help explain your project. These are all possible samples. You're limited to 2 pages for that, so the sample might be tight and concise. Please note that a budget is not required because your award amount is fixed or capped at $5,000 per month. On the right column now, you'll see a list of supplementary or conditional attachments. This is the first year we're requesting a reference letter from a scholar who is familiar with your languages or language of your project, and should provide an assessment of the writing sample that you are submitting with your application. Please notify this reference that they are expected to address the quality of the writing sample in their letter, as well as, let's say, your skills and aptitude to take on the project. While a reference letter is not a required document, it may help the review panelists assess the significance of your project, the level of endangerment, and why you are the best scholar to carry out the proposed work. The letter from the speaker community is particularly important if you are planning to do field work and documentation. You should demonstrate that the appropriate permissions have been sought and granted from the speaker community. The data management plan is just like the documents you submit for NSF applications. If your project includes language documentation, describe how your data will be archived, sustained, and supported. Include information on access and restrictions of access. Also include a letter of support from the archive where your material will be deposited. If you have fulfilled all the requirements for your degree, but it has not yet been conferred, for example, you've passed the oral defense for your dissertation, but you still don't have the degree at hand, you'll need to include a letter from your dean or department chair that confirms your status. Finally, if you are delinquent in the repayment of any federal debt, such as federal student loans, delinquent taxes, delinquent child support payments, or delinquent payroll taxes for employees, you must provide an explanatory information or a document explaining those parts. So now the application narrative, the most important document. It is really, this document is really the core of your application. Preparing an excellent narrative is worth spending some time on, because this is where you describe your project and make your case for funding it. Remember that it should be free from technical terms and jargon, so that peer reviewers, especially the non-specialists, who will read your application in the later stages of the review process, can understand what your project is about and why it's important. If you include specific terms, please define them. It will make reading the application easier for the non-specialists. The application guidelines instruct you to use certain subheadings in the narrative. The first one is called significance, impact, and endangerment. This is where you answer the question about the intellectual merit of your proposed project. Explain your project's goals and expected impact. Discuss the level of endangerment of the language you will be investigating and the urgency of documentation and analysis. The next subheading is organization, concepts, and methods. This is where you explain the research design of your project. You can discuss the basic ideas and questions to be examined and how your research will address them. You should explain the methods for documentation and discuss the theoretical framework in relation to the research questions, and explain specific concepts and terminology here if that's necessary. The next subheading is competency, skills, and access. Here you will talk about your academic background and preparation. You don't need to repeat what's in your attached CV, but explain what work that has led up to the project you are applying for. For example, it could be an expansion or revision of work you did for your PhD, and you need to actually detail the extra chapters or extra material you'll be adding beyond the PhD level. Finally, the last subheading is final product and dissemination. What are the results of your work? It could be a publication of different sorts, archival documentation, that you're going to archive, a combination of these things. You might also, for dissemination part, explain how the publication will be distributed, and whether you will be you'll be talking about your work at one or more conferences. The review criteria now. On this slide, you'll see the 5 criteria that peer reviewers will be asked to use for their evaluation of your application. It makes sense to craft your application so that it covers each of these aspects fully and convincingly. The application guidelines in the NOFO tell you which parts of the proposal address which criterion of the 5 that are listed here. Please note that the criteria can be relevant to more than one section of the application, and taken together, the parts of the proposal, that is to say, the narrative, bibliography, work plan, CV, and any supplemental material and appendices, all of these should form a coherent whole. The first and most important criterion is significance. That is to say, the intellectual merit and broader impact of the proposed project, its value to linguistics and humanities scholarship, and the level of endangerment of the language to be studied. These aspects must be addressed in the first part of the application narrative, the part on significance. And this is very vital, actually. Significance is very vital for NEH applications in general, but especially for DLI fellowships. The second criterion are methods and preparation. It is important to explain the conception and description of the project's research design, including the depth and extent of collaboration with speaker communities. This part also refers to your work sample, bibliography, and the speaker community support letter. The third are skills. That's keyed to the narrative section on competencies and skills, and to your CV. Number 4 are the outcomes and dissemination. Generally speaking, these match up with the final product and dissemination part of the narrative. They also include the data management plan and archive letter where applicable. The 5th criterion is the work plan, which is directly linked to the work plan attachment. The review process or review cycle. The review process is quite long, about 7 months long, actually. After the submission deadline on September 15th, the peer review panel will be convened by NEH and will meet late in the year, probably November or December. Then NEH staff prepares recommendations in early 2022. After consulting with the chairman's office, the recommendations are forwarded to the National Council on the Humanities, which is the advisory board that meets 3 times a year. The council reviews the staff's recommendations in March. The acting chairman of the endowment makes the final funding decisions shortly thereafter. Notifications to applicants are sent in April, and the start date for the fellowship can be as early as May 1st, 2022. Additional resources. This is an optional activity on your part. This is the first year we are providing applicants with help and feedback on their draft proposals. You are welcome to submit through email 3-page narrative, 1-page work plan, 1-page bibliography, 2-page resume or CV, and a maximum of 2-page samples to del.fel@neh.gov. Please put in the subject line quote NEH DEL DLI draft narrative, end of quote. And It will take us about a month's time to provide you with feedback, but then after that, by mid-August, after that you'll have an entire month to revise and update and work on your application before the submission date, which is September 15th, 2021. The NOFO, you have the URL for the NOFO, and you can actually download it by going to the main page for the fellowship, DLI fellowships, through the NEH website. The NOFO is your best friend. It has all the information that you will need. That's another, a major helpful resource that is handy. And additional resources include the FAQ frequently asked page, frequently asked questions page, and also recently supported projects. If you read the supported projects, the summaries and the list, you'll be able to tell what kind of projects are funded and which ones might not be, are unlikely to be funded. Additional resources, please, the staff is, NEH staff is willing to help and ready to offer you advice and feedback. So please feel free to email us, and we'll be happy to get back to you. We are here to serve you, so please do, make use of us if you want. Additional grant opportunities. So I'll speak briefly about the DLI-DEL senior grants. These are institutional, actually, grants. They are open to organizations. The period of performance can be up to 3 years. You can apply for funding for 1 year or 2 years, but the maximum is 3 years. And usually they involve more than one scholar or applicant. So it's basically a collaborative application submitted by an institute. And the institute has to be US based. So it could be a US university or college or a similar organization. It cannot be a foreign institute. The application deadline is September 15, and the project start date is May 1st. And here is a glimpse of their webpage, and you'll see on the left side, on the left side, you'll see the resources, and on the right side here, you'll see the deadlines, the grant snapshot. Additional grants offered by the research division include the individual fellowships program and summer stipends. I should add that these programs are open to all linguistic projects, so your project doesn't have to be related to endangered languages. Of course it can, but you don't have to restrict yourself to endangered languages. Individual fellowships offer support for 6 to 12 months, maximum 12 months, and the deadline is April 30th next year, 2022. Summer stipends, as the name entails, offer support for 2 months in the summer. So if you are planning to publish an article or prepare an article for publication, or work on analyze some let's say documents, or transcribe some interviews, or work on the data you've collected during the summertime, you can apply for this grant. And the deadline is September 22, 2021. And you have the link here. So I'm going to stop, and at the end, I would like to mention that you can contact me at my email, skutsi@neh.gov or at delfel@neh.gov. You can use either emails. I'm going to stop the share and open the floor to your questions. Thank you so much, Colleen. Actually, this is very helpful for all the links. I'm grateful for your help. Questions?
I'm on mute. Thank you. I did see a question about some of the links and wanting, and I tried during the webinar to put links to the NOFO and the prior funded fellowships.
Thank you. That's very helpful, actually. Thank you.
So please feel free to raise your hand or to put something in the chat box if you have questions. Well, I have a question about the offer to read drafts. I noticed that that deadline is 2 days away.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty close.
That's the official deadline, but actually I'll be very happy to help anyone until the end of July. After that, the deadlines become so cramped. So if you are working on an application, you're welcome to submit the draft until the end of July.
Very generous.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'll be happy to help my colleagues.
So someone has asked, can we submit more than one application?
For the fellowship, just one application. If for example you've submitted a draft of your application through grants.gov, and then you submitted another one that is more revised and more updated, the last copy will be taken into consideration and will be considered, will be reviewed, not the first one. So if you happen to submit a first draft and later on revised your application, you can do that. You can submit a revised application as long as it is as this happens before September 15, and the most updated or most recent copy will be taken into consideration and will be reviewed by the panelists. Does this answer your question?
Dave, did that answer your question?
Well, actually, I guess I think so, but I was thinking specifically two separate projects, just in case there are two different projects, and kind of playing for better odds, I guess.
In that case, it's one project. One application or one project. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You can wait. You can apply for other grants if you want to take a shot at other grants I've mentioned, like summer stipends or the individual fellowship program, or you can wait for next year and apply for, send an application for the second part of the project.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm not sure what this question is asking for, but it's so the documenting languages portion of this NOFO are available now. So I think they might be asking if the NOFO is available.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it is on the webpage. I'll copy the link immediately. Let's see. I think probably Colleen did that anyway.
I think I did do the NOFO. Yes, it's at 220. If you scroll back to 223. That should be the NOFO link.
Okay, I've provided it again. Other questions?
I see Yuan Chai has asked if the submission is rejected at the first time, is it possible to resubmit?
Oh, definitely, absolutely. The majority actually of applicants revise and resubmit, and it is recommended that you ask for the panelist feedback, because the feedback will help you write a better application. And it's very common, and don't be discouraged if you are rejected the first time you apply. It's very common that this happens. And the next applications will be much improved and will score higher, let's say, ratings, and you have a better chance of getting funded the second time or the third time even. Yeah, by all means.
I have there's two questions, and Maura, you may want to pop in and ask for clarification. So One of the questions from Maura O'Leary is, would it be acceptable to apply as a student who would be finished with their degree at the point of starting the fellowship, but not at the point of applying?
You have to have finished your dissertation defense before applying. So if you if the degree is not conferred yet, but you have defended your dissertation successfully, then you can apply. And you need to, in this case, to submit a document from your chair, department chair, or your supervisor attesting to this fact. And then before you start the fellowship period, by that time the degree should be conferred. So by that time you would be a PhD or a doctor. Mm-hmm.
And then she had a second question, which is, are students prohibited from applying to the other funding opportunities you mentioned?
Yes, NEH does not fund students, unfortunately. All the grants are have to, well, enrolled students cannot apply for NEH grants. If they are enrolled in degree programs, let's say if I'm taking a life learning course, for example, that's fine, because it will not lead to a degree. But if I'm taking courses that lead to a degree, then I'm not allowed to apply.
There's also a question about this, and this is a little more technical, about the linguistic details of the project. So if the standard variety of a language is still widely used, can projects be funded to document minor dialects that have been largely ignored?
Definitely, yeah. Dialects are, documenting dialects is acceptable, but the applicant needs to make the case for the significance of those dialects and how they impact, let's say, the larger group, the larger linguistic or language group. So it is possible, definitely, and we funded projects that actually document dialects, but the applicant always makes the case and explains the significance and why the documentation is necessary and vital. Mm-hmm. Good. These are all good questions, actually.
I see that Yuan Chai has another question, and I think I can perhaps accept this, answer this one. So they're asking about the dissertation grants that NSF does for the DLI program.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not governed by NEH. This is governed exclusively by NSF. And you would have to check with the program officer, but in general, NSF program officers do not read drafts. You can send a one-pager and ask for feedback if it's fitting within the mission of the program. That's often a really helpful way, and maybe you have particular questions about how you're going to implement things, but NSF program officers do not read drafts. And I put in the link, Ilaria, I saw that you asked about the career program. The career program is an NSF program, and I put information at the 2:46 p.m. comment in the chat box for you with a link to some resources on the career website, including a webinar NSF did. I see another question. Must a fellow have a PhD to qualify for this fellowship? And can a master's degree holder apply?
Absolutely. You don't need a PhD degree to apply for NEH DLI fellowships. Master's is fine. But you will need actually to explain in your or detail in your application your qualifications, your aptitude, the skills you have. The same requirements are actually applied to PhD holders. They need also to detail and explain how they are qualified to carry on the project. And please ask your your reference writer, the person, the colleague who's writing your reference letter, to explain in detail your aptitude to carry on the project successfully. There are two things. Your CV will help explain your skills and aptitude, the narrative, as well as and the reference letter.
I have another more technical linguistic question. Would this program support work in languages with no current first language speakers, but which have extensive legacy documentation that is still effectively inaccessible? So, for example, lots of untranscribed audio.
Mm-hmm. That's actually a good starting point. Yes, the program, the DLI-DEL fellowships will, you know, you can apply for the fellowship DLI-DEL program. They support such projects. It's you know, it's part of what is called morbid languages. So if you work on such language, by all means, you can apply for this fellowship.
Okay, great. Connor, I don't know if you have any follow-up questions on that. Nope, that was the main one. Other questions? Do you have any this is I've got a question for you. Do you have any additional tips for people when they're selecting their optional reference letter?
Choose your best ally. Someone who's your best fan, and also someone who knows your knows very well your research and is able to speak on your behalf. Sometimes what happens, I've seen this, this happens infrequently, but it does happen, when the applicant is too much in the thicket and is not able to articulate very well what the research is about and how important the project is. But then when you look at the reference letter, the author has been able to articulate very well what the applicant is trying to do, and explains very well the magnitude and the importance of the project. So choose someone who knows your research. They don't need to know the language itself, but they should be able to speak about the methodology, your aptitude, your skills, the project itself, how significant it is. Choose someone who knows and someone who is reliable, your best ally.
What percentage of applications are typically funded?
The funding rate actually compared to other NEH grants is high, considered high, even though it is still competitive. Approximately 15% of applications are funded, give and take. Because it is such a focused program, you know, we don't accept for the DLI-DEL fellowships. It's not just any linguistic project. It has to deal with, you know, with documenting endangered languages. So the applications all are very specific and focused. This is why there is a high actually acceptance rate compared to other programs and grants offered by the NEH. I encourage you all to apply. A no does not hurt. It will not, you know, it will not affect you in the least. You can apply as an individual, even if you're affiliated with an institute or a university. If you're worried about, you know, the chair or the dean looking down at your CV and saying that, you know, your application has been rejected or something like that, apply as an individual, as an unaffiliated scholar. Get the feedback. It's free. Get the feedback, and no doesn't hurt. Get the feedback and then reapply the following year. Don't delay. And you're welcome to send me the drafts of your application. You still have time, plenty of time to prepare your application. So please take advantage of draft feedback for drafts, and also apply. Don't be hurt by rejection. That's fine. It's how shall I say? It's part of life to be rejected in many ways, and it doesn't cost you any money, so it's free. Apply, get the feedback, and then revise and resubmit. And the only way to improve actually your application is by submitting an application and getting funded. The only way to get funded is through applying.
I believe the lottery expression is you can't win if you don't play.
That's true, actually, yeah. Good point.
Actually, someone just wrote, you make rejection sound pretty good.
Well, it's not bad to be rejected, yeah. I mean, if the rejection will lead to an acceptance, yeah, why not? And even if, rejections are also helpful when you're writing or drafting a book proposal, because they'll help you formulate your research questions and make your proposal, be it a book proposal or a grant proposal, more acceptable. You might be able actually, with the help of the feedback, submit applications, grant applications that are supported, internal grant applications supported by or offered by your university or college, or by the NSF. I mean, you can apply for the NSF, the different programs, of course, as well as NEH.
So what this wasn't asked, but I would ask, what do you think makes something a DLI project, humanities, an NEH project? So how should people think like NEH?
The major point is significance. Obviously, there are lots of languages that are endangered throughout the world. If I'm given the choice, I'd like to save them all, but we don't have that money. Unfortunately, we cannot be superwoman or superman. So saving all those endangered languages and protecting them. You need to explain why this language needs to be saved. What are the kinds of threats being the language is exposed to, and what impact does it have on the humanities in general, or in the community at large. If I'm just working or focusing on research methods, and for me this language is very important to save, but I'm not going the extra mile, the extra step of explaining why and why it matters. That's a major weakness in the application, because some applications are very detailed, very obviously the scholar is capable of carrying on the research, but then the significance is weak, and that's a problem.
And she wasn't able to join us today, but I have put in the chat box Jacqueline Clements. Jacqueline is the program officer for the preservation and access side. So for people who are interested in submitting a senior grant proposal, that would get submitted to NSF, but NEH picks the projects that are most suitable for its needs, its goals, its mission as an agency out of the proposal. So NSF runs the review process for the senior grant proposals, but both NSF and NEH funds projects out of that. So if you have questions about the suitability of your project, please feel free to contact Dr. Clements. She did ask that we pass along her contact information.
Oops, sorry, I wanted to write my email.
And I should add, Suha, somebody has just mentioned, thank you for being optimistic and helpful. And I would echo that. You just got such good cheer and such a good nature. You do make it feel like my rejection wouldn't be, as negative as a rejection from another, program.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to talk to you and to get to know you. And I look forward actually to working with you for a long period of time, in the sense that you'll get you'll get a grant, and I'll work with you for an entire year, and even later on when you want to submit for future applications. I'm here to help you, and and my words actually are meant, are truthful in the sense you need to apply, and it's okay to be rejected. So thank you so much for giving me your time, and I'm glad to be of help. And you have my email here, so please feel free to contact me if you need any help or want me to look at any of the material you'll be submitting.
Well, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your interest, and hopefully these links and this information will be a resource for you and you'll apply to the program.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for your help, Colleen.
You're welcome.
And thank you for Tamu for organizing this meeting.
Absolutely.